What's up, everyone? Welcome back to another episode of the Cali Kid Official Podcast. This is episode number 35, I do believe. So let's get right into it. So Microsoft made a big splash within the media. They purchased ZeniMax Media for $7.5 billion. The deal includes Bethesda Softworks and Bethesda Game Studios. If you don't know, they own the Elder Scrolls franchise, Fallout, Doom, Dishonored, Prey, The Evil Within, Wolfenstein, and Starfield franchises. So this is a major move for Microsoft because, as you know, they were recently in the media because they were supposed to take over TikTok's U.S. interest, but that deal fell through, and Oracle ended up taking over for that. So they basically had this ace in the whole deal. And this is going to help them sell some units going forward. So it says, in what might count as some of the biggest and most surprising news of 2020, Microsoft has announced it's acquiring ZeniMax for $7.5 billion. ZeniMax owns a range of high-profile games, including Doom, Quake, Rage, Dishonored, Prey, Wolfenstein, The Evil Within, and the Elder Scrolls. So this basically means that these games are probably going to become console exclusives, but thereby freezing out PlayStation and Sony in general. More than likely, the only way you're going to probably be able to play these games or the new games going forward is if you have a PC or an Xbox. So that's why they made this move, and this makes more sense than Microsoft delving into social media. But it says Microsoft is aiming to complete the deal in the second half of FICO year 2021, but it changes the trajectory of ZeniMax and its studios immediately. Any future games from a ZeniMax-owned developer could be Xbox and PC exclusives, potentially leaving PlayStation owners without a new Elder Scrolls or Doom experience to play this coming hardware generation. It's a move that could also help sell quite a few Xbox Series X devices later in its life cycle. Yeah. And so it says Microsoft is an excellent partner and offer access to resources that will make us a better publisher and developer. We believe that means better games for you to play. Simply put, we believe that the change is important part of getting better. We believe in pushing ourselves to be better, to innovate, to grow. Yeah, this was a brilliant move by Microsoft. I'm still waiting on that next Elder Scrolls game. Come the 11th of November, it will be 9 years since Skyrim was released, and only updates we've gotten is some type of teaser video that they put out years ago. And other than that, they said that the game is going to be made with the same engine, which I think is kind of lazy, because if you're waiting for next generation technology to create the game, why are you going to use the same engine? Doesn't make sense. But we'll just have to wait and see what they do going forward. But moving on from that into music, Tory Lanez drops a surprise album called Daystar, 17 songs, and he basically touches upon a variety of different topics. All the allegations pretty much hurled at him, he briefly touched upon that. He can't really speak upon it because it's an open case, but he also talked about his relationship with Meg and everybody that has something to say about him. So the album is 17 songs. It starts with a song called Money Over Fallouts, and he basically says that they're trying to frame him, and Meg signed an affidavit basically supporting the framing. On the song he says, "I ain't never put you in no danger, and if I did, you would have said it when you seen the cops." So basically he's saying that if I did everything that you said I did, why didn't you say nothing when the cops showed up? So that basically ties into her changing her story several times until she finally got online and said what happened, in terms of her account of the events. But it goes on this song. He also interpolates Weeknd's flow like halfway on the song A Woman. Then we get to the song Friends Become Strangers. He says, "When does it get strange when you start lying to your best friend about us doing things and hoping she ain't entertained?" So basically, he's saying that she was trying to keep her relationship with Tory under wraps from her best friend, which is Kelsey, and that she did that because it's possible Kelsey might have had some feelings for Tory, and maybe she might have got some type of jealousy or something. I think that's what he meant by hoping she ain't entertained. And women typically share their relationships, with their best friends. So he's saying it's kind of strange that you're trying to keep what we have together from her. But moving on from that, he also says, or will we keep acting like I put you in some danger and some pain, and when you hop back in the car with me, you knew everything was safe? We both know what happened that night, and it ain't what they saying. So that right there is basically saying that she's a part of a framing of him, and that in reality she knows what actually happened, and that she's just going along with what people in her ear are telling her to say. So it gets deep. Then we get to the record, Sorry But I Had To. This was probably the most loaded record on the project. He says, since I went independent, these niggas want my demise. And this basically speaks to when artists get their masters and they talk about exposing the industry. They undergo what is known as a public shaming. They did this with Michael Jackson as well as Prince, and now they're doing it to him. And if you recall, he said he talked about having issues with Interscope, and that he threatened he was going to expose what's going on in that building. So this is what he's talking about right there. He says, how are you attacking me, but you made this whole plan to fry me? If you got shot from behind, how can you identify me? This basically speaks to her saying that he shot her, but yet she also said that she was walking away from the car. So how could you see who shot you if you're walking away from the car? It doesn't add up. And that's something that I, as well as other people, has noticed. Like, what we've been told about this story is changed multiple times, and things aren't adding up. Then he gets at Asian Doll. He says, Asian Doll, talking but shorty, I don't know you. I never met you, nor have I heard a song. Behind that tatted skin, you battered with scattered scars, but I still respect and help you. But don't try to make it seem like I saw you out in public and said fuck it and try to disrespect you. So Asian Doll is basically another person that had something to say about the situation, but in reality he says they don't know each other, and so she shouldn't be speaking on the situation. Then he gets at JoJo. If you recall, she was on Quarantine Radio. I thought that was cool. He says, JoJo, that was a bozo move. You tried to take me off a song that got you the most views. They spent $50K on my feature, and they $50K in the lose right now. So yeah, JoJo, as well as Kehlani, Cash Paige, and I think somebody else took him off of their songs. But he also got at them saying, y'all took me off of deluxes of y'all albums, but I'm still on the original of y'all albums. So y'all basically just did that to save face. And so he basically saying that going forward is F them, and he ain't got nothing, to say to them after this situation. And then he says, even though I'm innocent, they got this picture painted heavenly. He's saying he knows he's innocent, but they painted this framing job perfectly to the point that a lot of people on the internet believes what they're saying about him. But he says he knows that ain't true. He gets at J.R. Smith, because J.R. has something to say as well. He says, J.R. Smith, this is the pot that pissed, and you the last cat that should talk about some shots that hit, because your performance and percentage play a role in riding benches. You the type to buy a bitch an 80-inch but won't get an inch up in her. Contradictions in your lines. With domestic prior crimes, we have still yet to find minds. So basically, this is a situation of don't throw stones from a glass house. He's basically saying, how you talking about me when you have prior charges of domestic abuse? And he also saying he's basically a simp, and that he spends a a lot of money on gifts and stuff for women, but in actuality, even though he does that, he still doesn't get the hit. So that right there was crazy. Then on at 250 of the record, he interpolates Drake's with "I know so well," and Drake says something to the tune of "I know it so well." Oh, I know it so well. Something, something, something like that. If you listen to it, you will understand what I'm talking about. But he also gets at the internet warriors too, who were mad because they thought he was gonna go live, what like Meg did, but he put out a project instead. So a lot of people was mad over that, which I think is funny. But he says, "You think I'm about to talk about an open cage just for some likes? I promise we even worked too many nights." So he's saying, "I'm not about to jeopardize my freedom for some likes. I worked too hard to get this far." Yeah, he played it smart. He got some good counsel around him because they didn't guided him through this pretty much flawlessly. And Meg basically uh made it harder for herself and her case by getting online and saying anything. She should have just waited until the court case came up. And till this day, he said there's still no charges against him. So it's looking like this possibly is probably going to get thrown out due to a lack of cooperation, and also because of the story changing a variety of different times. And then if you look at her injury, it's not consistent with that of a gunshot wound. It looks more so like a scrape or a cut. And if you get shot in the foot, your foot is surrounded by bones and tendons. And if you get shot in the foot, how are you not on crutches or a foot brace? I personally know somebody that got shot in the foot and they were on crutches and a foot brace for weeks. So that's where I'm saying it's not adding up. Something happened to her, but what's being said happened doesn't seem like it's playing out exactly how it's being said. I think it's a lot of shenanigans going on with the situation, but we'll just have to wait and see once this goes to court. So yeah, he also gets at Bun B as well, because Bun B had something to say, and him and Meg are both from Houston. He also got feelings for Meg as well, so that kind of ties into this as well. But he says, "We got Bun B on live saying I should burn in a cage. In these times of Black lives, he's saying I should turn into a slave." So basically, he's saying being in prison, as you know, if you're in the cage, you don't have your freedom. You're a slave. You can't do what you want. Then he says, if Steve Smith, he's referring to Stephen A. Smith, heard that, my nigga would have a rage right now. No diss to Pimpin' Bun, but you made Big Pimpin' son pouring champagne on women's face while they flick their tongue. I'm too young to give you lessons, but I like to give you one. Please stay the fuck about my case. I ain't convicted, son. So he's basically saying, how are you coming at me when you have a history of disrespecting women in terms of, pouring liquor on them? And then he's saying, he ain't been convicted, but yet you're vilifying him. And he's right. There haven't been any charges leveled against him outside of possession of a firearm or whatever. There hasn't been any criminal charges levied against him. And it's been months since this situation happened. So there's that. He also pretty much shaded Chance the Rapper. He says, Chance the Rap, too irrelevant. I would place his line with, my chain looking too heaven sent. Chance had something to say. He basically saying that Chance ain't even deserving of get at, because he's irrelevant in the situation. Then he gets at Rock Nation. Now this part right here is where the frame job thing pops up. He says, I made too much money with Rock Nation to know it's only niggas on your roster hating. Contemplating how these niggas calling me, threatening me not to make those statements. Okay. Why would her management team be calling the other party not to make a statement? That right there says to me that they're trying to be the first to put something out there, to paint a narrative. So this was the beginning of the frame job, in a sense. Pretty much. Crazy. Then he gets that Dream Doll as well. You know, they've had prior dealings. You know, she did some on that record talking about his road game was coming off when he was eating her out and stuff like that. But he says, give me one Dream Doll hit record. I'll wait. Basically saying she's irrelevant as well. Then he gets at Masika. He says, hey Masika, this your chance. You're in every Twitter debate and every shade room comment. Like, common sense ain't common sense. Like, we be needing your 2 cents and all your vents. Faking a kidnapping for your OnlyFans and trying to front like missing kids was your intent. Yeah, that was some sick shit right there. That was sick. Especially, you know, you got people being kidnapped and sex trafficked, you know, all day, every day. You know, they just found those kids in Ohio and Georgia. I talked about that. I believe that was on 2 podcasts ago. I talked about that. So yeah, that right there was crazy. Then he says, if that's the type of shit you teaching Kari, which is her daughter, then you should sit in a pen and watch people disagree. And in the end, you should try to make it facts, but it's an LIE in the end. Oh, it ain't funny when it's your turn when spectators got their lighters out with gasoline and wanting your burn. So he said, it was all fun and games when you was coming at me, but now that you on the hot seat, it ain't funny. Now is it? Yeah, I don't know what's wrong with her. She got a problem. But, and in his last part, he gets at the industry in general. He says, when MJ and Prince got their masters back, what happened? And this is what I was talking about. This is what they do to artists. When artists get their freedom, quote unquote, their masters, and they talk about the industry in turn usually goes forward with some type of public humiliation. And they've done this repeatedly. With MJ, the reason they got MJ, he became too powerful. He owned the Beatles catalog as well as various other artists' catalog, and they were mad that he wasn't willing to negotiate a sellback type of deal. He wanted to keep the masters and royalties for himself, and they got mad at that, as well as him talking about the industry in general. I remember I saw some interview where he was talking about the CEO of Sony was evil, and lo and behold, the pedo allegations come out. That's what they tried to use to take him down. That was pretty much bullshit. You've had several people come out saying that the side that was trying to convict MJ tried to pay people to say things that didn't happen. So that's all that was. And then, you know, of course, you know, MJ, he died with the injections by the doctor, and Prince, he died from injections by a doctor as well. So, and you know, Prince, he owned his masters and stuff too as well, and he also talked about the industry as well. So basically, Tory Lanez is saying, you seen what happened to them, they're trying to do the same thing to me. And this goes back to him saying that he was going to threaten to expose the industry earlier in the year. If you go back and look at his tweets when he had that falling out with Interscope. Yeah, he had a falling out with Interscope. I don't know why my camera keeps doing that, but. And then he says, Tory Lanez got his masters back just now, and look what happened. Yeah, they came with this bullshit. And Chris Brown, a black man that changed his life for the right, and still black Twitter find a ways to tear him down and bring him back in. Yeah, sick. The people on Twitter are miserable and bitter. That's why you shouldn't spend too much time partaking in that shit. Then he says, a rapper catch a domestic, y'all start to talk that action. I feel like Famous Amos after all that happened. They want the downfall of every black man, but I ain't going. That's true. Anytime a black man gets some type of status within society and the powers that be feel as though they can control them, that's when allegations and craziness and shenanigans usually pop up in every situation. And if they can't beat them down with that, they usually have them assassinated. That's been repeated throughout history. So that last part was cold. And then Famous Amos, he's a guy that was dancing in the videos and doing the skits with the MC Hammer black pants on. So I'm guessing he caught some type of charge. That's why you ain't seen him no more. And then we get to the song Care For You. This is basically like a call to action to black men and women. He's basically talking about all the trials and tribulations we have to go through and how the powers that be try to pit us against one another and all that type of stuff. And the record also samples This Love by Donell Jones. I think he just like pitched it up a bit. Then we get the record In the Air. This is pretty much one of the last records, if not the last record. He says, if being black is a culture, then what's cancel culture? Sounds like some white shit them niggas planning on us. Yeah, we are the culture. Black people, we dictate what's cool, and we dictate the culture in general. So he's basically saying, if us as a people is the culture, how can somebody cancel us when we are the culture? Then he says, this be that dark label shit them niggas trying to do to me. Once again, going back to the Illuminati public shaming, that's basically what he's talking about right here. I know the secrets and I know the fuckery, and they don't want me to say nothing, so they trying to shut. And then he pauses. So yeah, he basically saying they're trying to silence him. So pray for Tory, because as I said, if they can't get you out of here with the allegations, the last step is them trying to have you assassinated. So, you know, hopefully everything works out for him. And although something happened to Meg, we don't know what truly happened. She got hurt in some type of way. We don't know who did what. At this point, it's just he say, she say, and only way things are going to be found out is if is once this goes to court and evidence can be presented by both sides. But from what he was saying, she was drunk at that party as well, so ain't no telling what happened. Ain't no telling what happened. But he says, but God the only one in line to judge me, and the other side in kind is ugly, and they trying to fuck me. What happened to the times of helping self when we dehumanize celebrities with mental health? He basically saying, talking about people that kick people down when they discuss mental health and whatnot, and then in the same vein want to cry when those people decide to take their life. He says, don't know the story, so we make up one and upset ourselves. We don't know what happened, but everybody's made up a story and they're mad at the situation. We just marched in unity about us being brothers, and y'all ain't even hear my side is how we being brothers. So he's basically saying y'all just made up y'all minds without even hearing his side, which, you know, that's what the comment section usually do. They make up their minds without hearing out everything. And as I said before, there's his side, there's her side, and then there's what actually happened. And that ain't gonna be revealed until this goes to court. But still to this day, there hasn't been any charges levied against him in terms of this case. Only thing that happened was the possession of a firearm. So there was that. Then he says, it's kind of crazy. White folks ain't even saying nothing. Only celebs I'm seeing hating on my same color. Get it together. We got to get it together. Tory, you in this situation not because he's hating. He's referring to God. Because Tory, you in this situation not because he's hating. He's using Meg as a vessel and a test of faith. And even when you at the bottom is when he makes his way in. God, thank you for turning me into a demonstration. So he's basically saying, even when you at your lowest of low, God is there to help you pick yourself back up, is what he's saying. So overall, I like the project. It was very introspective. It touched upon a variety of different things. Their relationship with one another, how they would console one another and discuss other relationships, and how they connected with each other because they both lost their mothers and all that type of stuff. He also talked about how you hate black women when, you know, his baby mother is black, his daughter black, and, you know, mom, auntie, all that type of stuff. So Overall, it's a dope project. If you haven't heard it, you should check it out. My favorites were um, Friends Become Strangers, Sorry But I Had to, Bittersweet, Care for You, and In the Air. And I gave it a 15 out of 17, which comes out to an 88%. So this is a pretty cool project. If you haven't heard it, I suggest you listen to it. He touches up on some things, you know, those that already made up their mind probably aren't going to care, but it is what it is, and that's usually how things go. But moving on from that into the NFL. So week 2, we saw a whole bunch of injuries. A lot of these injuries were very crucial. The 49ers in particular probably suffered the worst. They lost their quarterback, Jimmy G. They lost Nick Bosa and Solomon Thomas, which are two key cogs on their defensive line. And they also lost Raheem Mostert, which is their running back. And from what I was reading, they also have, I think it's upwards of 13 starters hurt. So they're going to be feeling it. And from what it also said, that's about 70% of their salary is hurt. So they might miss the playoffs this year because that's a lot. They have a lot of key injuries. And then they got to face the Seahawks twice, the Rams twice, and they got to play the Cardinals again, who they already lost to. So it's going to be crazy. Other injuries, Christian McCaffrey, he out for the year for the Panthers. The Giants, they lost Saquon Barkley. The Chargers, Tyrod Taylor, he suffered from a punctured lung caused by a doctor administering some type of pain medicine through a syringe. So there is that. So that means that the quarterback out of Oregon is going to be starting going forward. I can't remember his name. The Seahawks, they lost Bruce Irvin, and David Andrews broke his thumb apparently against the Seahawks, so he's going to be out for some time as well. So a lot of injuries at key points on these different teams, so that's going to be crazy. Some of these players might be able to come back, like Raheem. I think he possibly might be able to come back. David Andrews, he's probably going to be out a couple of weeks. But yeah, there was more injuries, but week 2 was crazy with the injuries. So that right there was crazy. But moving on from that into UFC 253. So we get Israel Adesanya defending his middleweight title against Paulo Acosta. They have some type of beef with one another, and there was some tension at the weigh-in. Paulo threw a white belt at Israel's, because I'm guessing Israel has a white belt in some particular MMA discipline. I'm picking Israel to win that. I haven't seen Paulo fight, so I'm not too familiar with his skill set. So I'm picking Israel in that. And then we get Dominick Reyes versus Jan Blachowicz, or Juan Blachowicz, for the vacant lightweight title, which was left by John Jones due to him having disagreements in terms of pay. And he's also said that he's transitioning into heavyweight. So there's that as well. I'm picking Dominic to win that. He was in a close battle with John Jones, so I think he's going to become the new lightweight champ. Moving on from that into WWE Clash of Champions. This is going to be an interesting card. So we get Drew McIntyre versus Randy Orton. This will be the second time they're battling for the belt. I think Orton might try to do something sneaky to win. But ultimately, I think Drew is going to retain this belt. If Orton does win, it will be through shenanigans. Then we get Roman Reigns defending his Universal title against Jey Uso. I'm picking Roman to win this fairly easy. I think this is going to transition to Jey possibly joining Roman. And hopefully we get the House Samoa stable that I've been thinking about, which basically you have Roman Reigns as the head. You have Jimmy and Jey Uso as like the lieutenants. You have Tamina and Nia Jax as well. and then this could possibly lead to The Rock coming back to confront him and fight for the belt and be the and to battle for the actual head of the family or chief of the family. So this is possibly something they could possibly be setting up. So this should be an interesting bout. Then we get Jeff Hardy versus AJ and Sami Zayn in the ladder match for the Intercontinental title. There's been some type of unresolved issues between them. Both Jeff and Sami lay claim to being the true Intercontinental champion. So there's that. So this is going to be a way for them to resolve that issue. Then we get Bayley defending her SmackDown Women's title against Nikki Cross. I think Bayley is going to win this, but it's possible there might be some interference to try to distract Bayley, and she could possibly lose that way, thereby setting up Bayley versus Sasha Banks at some point. Then we get Nia Jax and Shayna Baszler versus the Riot Squad for the women's tag team titles. I'm expecting them to destroy the Riot Squad, but in the future, I think that they're going to eventually implode, and that's going to be when they drop those belts. But I'm picking Nia and Shayna to win this easily. Then we get the Street Profits versus Andrade and Angel Garza for the Raw tag team titles. I think the Street Profits are going to win this fairly easy. Then we get Bobby Lashley versus Apollo Crews for the United States Championship. I think Lashley is going to win this, and I think Apollo might possibly join the Hurt Business with Lashley, who's partnered with MVP and Shelton Benjamin. In a sense of, if you can't beat them, join them type of scenario. Then we get Asuka defending her Raw Women's title against Zelina Vega. I think Asuka is going to easily win this. Zelina, she's more so a manager. That's like her most prominent role. So I think she's going to win this. Although WWE could shock us with Zelina winning some type of way. Then lastly, we get Cesaro and Shinsuke Nakamura defending their SmackDown tag team titles against the Lucha House Party. And that's going to be a fairly easy victory for Cesaro and Shinsuke. And in terms of Shinsuke, they've pretty much dropped the ball with him. He should have been WWE champion a long time ago. They even changed his entrance theme as well, which was dumb. Like, when they had him at his hottest, they should have put the belt on him. But I'm guessing because of that language barrier, that's why they didn't. So, and this is pretty much people choosing who's going to win or whatever. But that's going to pretty much do it for this week's podcast. I appreciate you all for tuning in. If you're listening on Anchor, Spotify, and everywhere else, I appreciate you all for listening. If you're watching on YouTube, be sure to leave a like and a comment below. And until the next one, peace.